Hello, Pierre,
Hi,
and
Radu.
welcome to our new episode of What is Courage podcast.
Thank you.
A podcast from the heart, as you know, with Peer Stoop. Hello. So, I told you a little bit earlier that I'm a little bit nervous and I prepared for this episode, which I usually don't. No one will. I will cut this, which I usually don't. So that's why I try to research you, but I believe the best way to start is for you to present yourself. After I will tell everyone what I what I found out. I found out that usually any guy who enters the LinkedIn social network knows that you are the executive director of Schoolvision International or Team Academy and Team Academy, right?
It is officially the executive director of Schoolvision International. And
Okay,
within that, we also have the Team Academy program and the Entrepreneurship Academy program.
good. So you are a
But
believer in
that's not who I am.
so no, okay. So let's search deeper. Maybe you are the Icarus training consultancy
No,
owner of.
no,
You
that's
are
what I do.
this is what you do.
Yes, but it's not who I
Interesting.
am.
Interesting. Um,
And this is the thing with LinkedIn, we put down there what we do, and it becomes who we are for some people. And I make this clear distinction at least in my head. We are not what we do, not necessarily. So the title of an executive director is not who I am, it is just what I do.
okay. So who you are, it's actually related to why you do this
It is.
more than what you do.
Yes. I do what I do because I really think the world needs a change. And my way of doing that is through the jobs that I currently have. So through
Okay.
what I do, because I very much believe in what Nelson Mandela said: education is one of the best ways to make a change in the world. So I've decided to work in the field of education. And from that, my job title is Executive Director of Schoolvision. And I also have a small company that delivers trainings on leadership, management, teamwork, diversity and inclusion.
Dialogue.
And dialogue, which is part of it. So that part would fall under the communication part. But that is what I do.
Okay, so coming back to who you are,
Yes.
can you give an answer on this?
Yes, I'm a
Yeah?
I'm a
Okay.
55-year-old guy who moved back to Bucharest.
Moved back to Bucharest.
Yes, moved back to
So you are
Bucharest.
Romanian, basically.
I'm not Romanian. No.
Kidding.
I hold a Dutch passport, but I have a very mixed background. So there's my grandparents who are not from the Netherlands originally. So that part, I hold several parts in me. And that makes me who I am. So I'm this 55-year-old guy who wants to enjoy life in such a way that me enjoying life makes sure that other people can also enjoy life in a sustainable, fair, sincere, and honest way. That is who I am. And I show who I am through what I do. A bit of a philosophical approach, but
Yes.
I really believe that those people who are their job titles, and unfortunately there are people who are their job titles, they don't talk enough about who they are. They usually talk about what they do. And of course, what you do is very much influenced by who you are, should be. And my view on these things is that people should bring in much more of who they are. I've seen very beautiful people, very nice, honest, sincere people in jobs in which I sometimes even ask them, like, how can you do this job being who you are? Unfortunately, I've had these talks with some politicians.
In Romania or
No,
in Netherlands?
Yes,
Okay.
in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Because
it will be helpful here also, but
yeah, I had two talks with two Romanian politicians because I think the first time I lived here, They asked me if I had a CNP, and I said I have. And then they told me, well, then you can participate in the elections. And this is why they wanted to talk to me, because they wanted to get my vote.
Of course.
And I asked them, like, but why should I vote on you, being who I am? And there was no connection. And that's when I started talking with them. I'm maybe an old-fashioned person, but politically, I choose people who I think align with my values or my views on life. And I don't see that alignment here. So, sorry, I didn't vote in Romania.
Okay, so you are saying that your roles doesn't really identify you. I mean, the roles are not your identity, right? This is something you do, not
It's
something you
something I
are.
do, and
Okay,
they are not my identity, but of course they represent my identity.
okay.
They do.
They tell something about your identity. Of course,
Of course.
it will be schizophrenic not to do it. I mean, it will
Yes.
be quite okay, quite the opposite. Good, but maybe your values are your identity. Can you tell us something about your values?
Yes, yes. I've been trying to live for several decades now through the values of Bushido, which are not my values. They're an existing set of values. They're very old.
Okay.
Um, and they are 7 or 8, depends a bit, because sometimes they are presented as 7 values and sometimes as 8 values. And I always look back at them. And sometimes when, for example, when I was in a more confrontational or conflictuous situation, I asked myself, did I deal with this according to Bushido? Because,
Bushido.
it's there, but even I sometimes have to read back, what does it actually mean? Because the meaning doesn't change.
What does it actually mean?
Well, the interesting aspect is there is one called heroic courage.
Talking about courage.
Talking about courage. And okay, to be fairly honest, that's the only preparation I did today. I looked back into heroic courage of Bushido.
Thank you for your honesty.
And it says, it starts with hiding in a hiding like a turtle in a shell is no life at all.
Okay.
You should be acutely honest in all your dealings. And this is
Acutely.
acutely, like,
Oh,
and this is how my life has turned out to be over the years. You don't start doing this when you're in high school. I think it started in the military training that I had to be not hiding in a shell. So when I was 18, I came out of the closet as a gay person. And looking back,
military.
I was in the military.
In the first year.
In the first year.
Okay.
Looking back, I never thought of it in that way then, but that took a hell lot of courage, because I was in this very masculine situation where, most gay men are seen as very feminine and I was not willing to meet that stereotype, because that's not who I am. I even think when you look at that to who am I and what do I do, even there, I've seen over the many years, that gay men are feminine, and that there are gay men who act feminine.
Oh, okay.
So acting is, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is not who I am.
Okay.
So I've never did, I just showed who I am. And that in itself was, looking back, a courageous choice, because I never felt the need to use the stereotype we have on this, and especially in those years. This is 37 years ago.
Oh.
I'm that old.
Okay.
And up until today, I try not to act according to the stereotype. I try, and that's difficult, because a stereotype is something that it's not just something that people think about you, it is something that you also start believing in. So the difficulty there is, not to fall for the trap of acting on the stereotype, as the stereotype of someone who went to the military,
Yes.
as the stereotype of someone who holds the job title of an executive director. It's all these all these things for me come into place when you talk about courage, strangely enough, because it is I consider it to be pretty courageous to decide to truly live life by your own standards, which you should assess on a daily basis in your connection with others. Because just holding your own standards makes you a lone wolf. And if you keep checking them in your relations and your connections to others, it makes you a leading wolf instead of a lone wolf. And that's what I really want to be. I want to be
a leading wolf.
A leading wolf. Yes, leading
Okay.
by example, showing others, there are so many ways to be who you are, and not to be what you do.
But why do you say at 18 it was courageous? Maybe it was a bravada. It was like an act of, Facebook. How do you say it? Because this is who I am. I mean,
for me,
how did it feel? How did it feel? Like, if you remember, of course, maybe
it felt very anxious, because even in the Netherlands and even up until today, we think it is very easy to come out of the closet, but up until today, it's a really hard process. So that creates a lot of anxiety, and to surpass your anxiety is a brave step in itself. You need to be willing to do that, because
to decide. The first is to decide, right? This is
to decide to take that step.
Okay.
And in my case, which is not unique, that decision was highly influenced by external factors. It wasn't my decision alone. It was either, live a life in hiding from my family, from my friends, or live a life less in hiding from my family and my friends. And I chose the latter. I chose the second one, to live, less in hiding. But when you're 18 and you never really had a chance to talk about this with other people, that's one of the things of being, as we say nowadays, a member of the LGBTIQ plus communities. You don't necessarily always get the chance to discuss this with the people close to you, with your relatives. And even if your parents are very open-minded on this, they can never really tell you. Your father cannot tell you what it is to fall in love with another guy. Your father might be willing and able to tell you what it is to fall in love with another woman. Your mother can give you the perspective what it is to fall in love with a guy, but from a female perspective.
Yeah.
So you're not accustomed with discussing these things, which in the Netherlands, even at my generation, my age, were things that you could discuss with your parents, with your, if your parents were a bit more open-minded, these are the things you could discuss with them. Like, how does that work? How do you fall in love? And even if you try to do that in hiding, so if you just ask the question, how do you fall in love? 9 out of 10 times the follow-up question, for me would be, you met a nice girl. What do? Do you lie to your parents? I chose very early in life to try not to lie. And that became so hard when it came to my identity, being a gay person, that this kind of forced me to choose to tell my family and friends that I'm a gay person. Because I didn't want to lie anymore. And
why? Because of the others, or because you were not aligned with you? Actually,
it was not aligned with how I feel good in life.
Okay.
And from a young age, I was trained not to lie by my grandfather. And I really believe in the value of at least trying not to lie. Try to be honest. Try to be sincere in all your dealings, which also aligns very much with Bushido. But it's very difficult sometimes. It's the thin line between not telling everything, or sometimes even not telling the full truth. Or plain lying. And on this, on sexual orientation, there's only the full truth. If you want to be completely in life, like if you want to be there as a person, So I think the spark that led my courage,
Okay.
looking back, was making this choice. This was one of the first difficult choices I made in my life, to either tell or not tell. And I was in the military in the Netherlands when we were finally getting rid of what lasted for example, in the American army for longer. Don't ask, don't tell. And I was one of the first batches of people that were beyond don't ask, don't tell. I vividly remember the setup of the first, now we would say LGBTIQ plus community in the military. Then it was the gay and lesbian community in the military. I vividly remember that it happened. I was in the first batches that was there.
I mean, they asked you this question, or it was your. I want to because this is a very courageous moment. Of course, it's
Yes.
like confronting lots of fears. Okay, but also you are doing this because you want to be aligned with your values, which is actually my perception of courage. What I understand from what courage is.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to, if you can further develop on the moment. I mean, how did you do it? Did you tell everyone? Did you write? Were you asked? What were the expression on the other? And how did you handle the pressure? Because I believe you felt. I don't know. You tell us.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
The most difficult part was to tell my mother, because only 2 or 3 weeks prior to that moment, she told others, and they told me that, and this was a gay friend that she told it to, that she was very okay with gay people, but that she would be having a lot of difficulty
If you were to be her
if
son,
I were to be gay, if one of her children were to be gay.
it's a Romanian. Okay.
And then I
I
decided,
heard it a lot of times.
yes, then I decided that this was the only momentum that I could tell her, because if I wouldn't tell her now, things would only get worse. So it took me another 3 to 4 weeks to sit down with her and tell her. And it was a very, very tough talk, because I had a very nasty stepfather who was a homophobe. So I knew some shit was going to hit the fan, as they say. I never realized it would be that bad.
Oh.
So there was another part of that I needed to think of. So it's not necessarily, and this is what I've seen with a lot of people who come out, as we say. You tend, and I think I did the same, you tend to apologize for being gay. So you sit down with your parents and you tell them, I'm sorry, but I'm gay. And only later in life I learned, like, what actually happens when you do that? When you apologize for who you are. And this is what is in your mind. This is how you feel at that moment. And the biggest confrontation is not just facing in my case, my mother and my stepfather, but facing your own views,
Your own beliefs.
and your own beliefs,
Wow.
and everything. You apologize for being who you are.
For being not good enough. I'm not like the rest of us. Sorry, I
Yep.
apologize. Wow.
Yes, yes. And it takes a really, really long time. It took me a really, really long time. And sometimes, to be very bluntly honest, I'm still there to realize, no. I think, and you and I talked about it in the past, the obstacle is the way. I think this is one of the moments in my life when I learned that you can take any obstacle and turn it into something good. So what happened with me is, I think I became very successful in what I do because I wanted to prove to others that I'm as normal as they are, which put something in me that, I'm still trying to show sometimes to others, but I'm as normal as anyone else.
An ambition, a desire to,
Yes.
okay,
Yes. Ambition, desire.
to deliver the quality stuff and
Yes.
to.
Yes. This is what I noticed. I didn't notice. This is what I learned about my time in the military. When I got these compliments like, wow, man, you're really good at this, you're really good at that. And only now.
After they found out.
No, it wasn't. That was not even, that was hardly ever the issue at hand.
Okay.
It was when they found out, they were like, "What, you? No, 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 because you're too masculine."
You're too good at this or too masculine. Yes.
Yes. So that was always a thing. No, it's the aspect of trying to show to others that you are good that you are good as who you are. And I think my biggest confrontation with this was only 3 years ago, when I was asked, because one of the things I do, I train in diversity and inclusion, and of course, many talks that I have on this is on sexual orientation, because that's part of what I bring.
You should know something about this topic. Okay.
Yes, but I should also objectify what I know about.
Yes, of course.
So I was asked for a high school in the Netherlands to talk with one of their teachers who had difficulty with third generation migrant kids in the high school. Third generation means they are the grandchildren of migrants. In this case, mostly Moroccan migrants. So my question was if I would be willing to sit down with that particular teacher and talk with him about why they face the issues of not building the connection with these kids.
Okay.
And I said, sure, I will. So we met up for a coffee in a coffee shop. Him and the person who asked me, who was his manager, his leader, was a head of like a dean, we would say here. And the dean was earlier, and the dean asked me. I knew the dean because he had been in training with us many years before. And then the teacher came in, and a non-binary person stepped in, and I wasn't informed. So, being part of the LGBTIQ plus community, I was like, okay, change of mindset. Funk. Not he, not she, them. And I started talking. And one of the things I realized that the issue was not them being unable to accept the third migration kids. It was also not the third migration kids having difficulty accepting them. There was some friction, but the school not supporting both of them. And then I started talking with the non-binary person, with them. What happened? And the person started crying and told me, I've been working so hard my entire life to prove that I'm normal as I am.
Proof.
And now they're asking me to do it again, to prove to them I'm normal. But they don't show me what normal for them is. So I'm done. I wrote a letter yesterday to the management of the school that I'm taking sick leave because I'm in a complete burnout. And that hit me 3 years ago. That hit me because that made me realize, their words made me realize, this is what happens to many, many people in the LGBTIQ plus community. We're not aware. I wasn't, sorry, I can only speak on my own behalf.
Okay.
I have not been aware for a very long time that this is who made me who I am. Just constantly showing to others, this is who I am. What I do is side, this is who I am. I'm a normal person like you. Without even asking myself, what do we mean with normal? Why do I work so hard? Why do I, why am I on edge 24/7? And that, if it comes to courage, if it comes to living through your values, values, my view on values, they are not gender determined. They are not dealing with sexual orientation or non-binary, transgender, straight, queer, whatever. Values are values. The interpretation of values, that's where this part comes in. But values can be the same for everyone. So what I learned up until now on this is the moment you enable each other to go together, to go back to some values that you share, it's going to be a completely different outcome. If you both want to show respect, you can start asking each other, in what way do I show respect to you? Instead of, I think I show respect by calling you this. No, in what way do I show respect? Tell me, how do I show respect to you? That's the only thing you can deeply do if you share the value of respect. And then sometimes even letting go of your views on what respect actually is. Because, the translation of your value might not be the same. This is what I notice when I work on culture, diversity, and inclusion. I go back to the values we share. Many societies, it's theoretically, academically, they've done lots of research. Many societies actually share the same values, but they show them in different ways. The first level is, many societies value community. Many societies value some kind of marriage system, so people living together. Many value
social networks
yes,
to evolve. Yeah.
Yes, many societies value a religious system. So when you go back to the aspect of that many societies value a religious system, you don't talk about what that system means. You talk about, we both have this value of the religious system.
Of course.
But you
only that
show it in a different way that I do. Can we get back to the essence? Which is hard. It's extremely hard.
I mean, you believe in family. You were married, right?
I was married, but
You
with a
were
guy.
married. Yes, but this doesn't mean that you don't have as a value the family-centric approach, or
Wow.
No,
yeah, I do. But
so
one of the aspects that I've been asking myself for the past 6 years, because we broke up 6 years ago, why did I marry?
and you don't have an answer
I'm still
yet.
I'm still thinking about the answer, but I think one of the reasons we married is because we live in a heteronormative society, and that is built on marriage.
Okay.
And everything that we create is built on that. So you're only seen as a couple fully if you either get an official acknowledgement of your being together by a document or by marriage. And the Netherlands was the first country that legalized, which is an idiotic word in itself, gay marriage. Because that was the only way that gay people were seen the same in a heteronormative society.
Were they seen the same? Are you sure?
Legally, yes.
Yes, but the society?
No,
it's
not at all.
Sometimes by
Because
human
they
beings.
were, sometimes people still say they were allowed to get married.
Allowed, yes.
Okay, so that means that the majority decides that it's okay for two men or two women or to any kind of persons to get married.
Something like this. This is.
Yeah.
So why did you do it if you were courageous from 18 years old? I mean,
why we married?
Yes.
Because we loved each other.
So not to be compliant with the society.
And
it's a matter of values.
No. And because, by then, if something would have happened to me, either me or him, we were not allowed to decide for each other. And there was only one person in my life at that moment that I would like to decide about me if something would happen to me. This is the legal aspect.
This is the legal aspect of it. So.
And then you make use of the legal options you have. We even went to the United States on a trip. And then the question became really clear. What happens if something happens to one of us? Because they, at those days, didn't acknowledge same-sex marriages. So in the United States, even though we were married in the Netherlands, we were legally would not be married. I'm not sure if it's still the same nowadays in Romania. I'm not sure. But that's not That's not for that.
I want to ask you something to build upon your military experience.
Yes.
For me, as little as I know from you, I believe this coming out of the closet in the military can seem the most courageous act you've done in military career. But I assume you did some other things there, other than talking about this subject. I mean, you had some experiences which maybe implied some fears to be overtaken, some courage from your side. Can you describe a situation like this, and how did you act, and what people can actually learn from this?
I think the first most courageous act was the first time I shot a gun. To practice shooting.
Practice.
You know, the first time you shoot it, and it wasn't pointed at anyone, it was just at a shooting range.
How did it
but
feel? Because I want to.
Well, that's
I
the
did
first
it
time
also.
that's the first time you realize you might actually come into a situation where you need to point that gun at someone. And then you need to start asking yourself, what do I even know? Do I even begin to understand what I would do then? Would I be able and willing to do that?
Was it scary?
Yes.
Because I felt
was
it
very
scary. When I
scary.
did this, I felt it scary. A
was
lot
very
of
scary.
power, but very scary. Powerful and scary in the same thing. I mean, what the heck?
Yes and no, because you know there's also the group pressure, or as they say nowadays, peer pressure. I don't know where they got the word.
Wink, wink.
No, but you also perform because all the other guys perform as well. And in my days, it was guys in the military. So you know the other guys perform, so you perform. So the pressure makes it less anxious. You build each other up. You tear each other up. Like, oh, we all got to do, you know, like the alpha behavior that is not really alpha behavior.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot of noise.
Yes, and that happened many times when I was in the military. Even when we went into situations that were no longer training, you know, and then you still help each other out. This is what for example, there's this series on Netflix that is close to reality, I think, because I haven't been in World War II, but it's called Band of Brothers. And in that series, they actually show you how to build brotherhood in the military. And this is one of the things they've been doing for centuries. And the good thing is that brotherhood helps you to become more courageous. And the bad thing is that it helps you to become more courageous. Because if it helps you in a good way, it also teaches you to think for your own. But unfortunately, you know, sometimes people are still a bit young to start that process. This is what I see happening with the students that you and I work with here at the Entrepreneurship Academy.
Yes.
Some of them are not there yet. I think all of us can make it, men or women, or non-binary persons. We can all make it, but some of us are not there yet. And I've seen people my age who are not there yet. But I have a firm belief in the resilience of every individual. We can endure much more than we think we can. And this is, for me, where courage comes in. Hiding like a turtle in a shell is no life at all.
There's no life at all.
So sometimes you have to be out there. And sometimes you have to choose the comfort of your shell.
And to have the courage to shut up. I heard this from you, you know. It's very good. I mean, can you further develop on that? What does it mean, the courage to shut up?
For me, it's about time and timing, which I learned it from a friend of mine. There's a time to say things, and the timing on how you say the things is even more important.
What's the difference?
Let me tell you later.
I'm practicing shutting up right now, but not very
good.
good.
It's not really working.
Not working, no.
But it's okay. So there's a time to say things makes it completely logical that there's also a time to shut up, because otherwise you don't even see the time to say things. And then there's the timing in which you say things. So, for example, this might be the right time that I tell you that you should learn to shut up. Because you come with the example of having difficulty not to interrupt me. But this talk is going in a way that I'm not really bothered. So the timing makes that it's not needed for now.
Okay.
If I would really be bothered, if I would think, you know, you're not getting the best out of this talk by interfering, then timing comes in. So the time is already there. I've noticed, and we've met each other before, we've talked before, so I've gotten to know you, so I know that it's enthusiasm. It is wanting to get more, wanting to bring more. Then, you know, the time to tell you, like, that's not always the case, that time is here. But the timing, especially when you look what we're recording now together, is not there, because it would, you know, if I would tell you now, like, yeah, but now you need to shut up, You would be, because you told me you're a bit anxious, and I would overrule you. And that's what I mean with the timing. You know, the
Yes,
timing is
yes.
not there. And it would not bring anything substantial to do it now. That for me is an example of time and timing.
Okay, but after the recording, if you give me feedback on this, this would be a better timing. I
Could be.
understand correctly.
Yes, could be.
Good. I will get out very quickly from the room, not to. What is not courage? Because
Sorry?
you talked about what is courage. You talked about be aligned with your values, right? And of course, overcoming the fears. This is common sense. This is not something we invented here. But what is not courage? What do usually people confound mismatch courage with?
Some things are the opposite of what we discussed already, or what we talked about already. So courage is not just always talking when you think you should talk. That's not courage. That is sometimes inappropriate, unpolite. Um, Courage is not just, to start shooting when you're in a dangerous situation. That is being hasty. Courage, if you're okay with it, I would like to reflect that on the things we discussed.
Of course.
Courage is not always shouting everywhere you think you should shout that you're a gay person and you want to be accepted. That's not courage. That is showing part of your own process, at least to me. And I know that there are a lot of gay people who disagree with me on this. A lot of gay people who think you should always take a stand. And my view, whether it's good or not, because it's something completely different to discuss, is you should think when you take a stand. You should choose your battles, and you should never fight old battles. That's also not courage. That is that's more being naive. Yes. And it's also not very courageous for me to decide for others what courage is. I can only decide for myself.
Yeah, of course. What is courage for you? That was.
Yes,
Okay.
but when you ask me what is not courage,
Okay.
that comes into play. Because in the end, that is not for me to decide. I don't know what brought people to where they are right now. So it is not my place to tell them if I agree or disagree with how they behave themselves. I do, however, can have the courage even to tell them what their behavior does to me. And that's a very thin line.
This is setting boundaries, right?
Sometimes it is, but the difficulty in setting boundaries is that if you're not doing that in a respectful way, your boundaries may overrule other people's boundaries, and you don't want that. So just setting boundaries is not enough.
And inflect their
Exploring.
ego and destroy the relationship eventually.
Exploring
Okay.
each other's boundaries. That is what is much more effective. And I like being effective. I don't always need to be successful. I rather be more effective than more successful.
Than being right,
That's something different as well. Being right or wrong is not always related to being effective or successful.
Yes, that's a third concept.
Yes.
Would you prefer being right or being happy?
I'm human as anyone else, and we all want to be right in the end.
And successful.
For me, success would be related to the effective and like how effective am I in what I would like to achieve in life. That to me is success. Not showing to others how much money I make. I don't have a car, so not showing off my car. No, the only fancy thing I do is I tend to upgrade my flights to business class. That's the only thing that where people could visibly connect my lifestyle with being successful, which is not. I'm a single guy that makes a nice living, so I don't have to pay for my partner and maybe even 2 kids to travel business class. I only have to pay for myself. That's how I do it. It's not because I'm wealthy. No, it's because I'm in the situation that I only have to take care of myself.
Okay. Do you still have some fears to overcome, some unresolved, unmanaged fears you wish to approach differently in order to be more effective, let's not say successful in the future? Is it something you still have on the plateau?
You know, I don't even know if I've ever been run by fears. Fears to me would be, when are you afraid? Situations when you are afraid. And I haven't been in many situations where I was extremely afraid. I think I can think of 4 or 5 situations throughout my life.
Is it healthy, not being afraid?
I think it's very individual. I think you build resilience in a certain way. So what I tend to do is I don't tend to go into situations that are risky or that I think
Okay.
are risky.
You
So-
strategize more than
Yes, I think I do.
act. You prepare more than you take action.
Never ready, always prepared. That's one of the things I don't just say, it's one of the things I very much do. I'm knocking wood because I'm superstitious as well. But because for some situations you can never be ready. What am I afraid of? If there would be one of these big mushrooms with a brilliant light bulb at the end of the horizon, that's what I'm afraid of. That we as a species are not capable of getting into dialogue with each other so much that we can rule out that that could be an option in life. That's one thing that I'm afraid of, that we end human life because we stopped thinking.
Which are the chances? Which do you feel are the chances to be happening this
Of that happening?
in our life? Yes.
I think we also live in a society where we don't even know anymore what the chances of that happening truly are.
That's why I asked you.
Yes, but I don't know. I honestly don't
Your
know.
feelings. It's not about knowing. Of course you don't. Nobody knows this.
No,
What
but
do you feel about it?
when I hear a big bang, I immediately look around. What was it? What was this? Was there one of these world leaders that is crazy enough to push the right buttons? And then I think I've learned that one world leader doesn't just push one button. It doesn't work like that. So that keeps me going. But you're talking about fears now.
Yeah,
like deep
this is
fears.
irrational.
Yes, it's irrational.
It's normal. That's why we are discussing it.
That's one of the things I've been afraid of ever since I was in the military. Because there you get trained a bit on, what happens if this happens? What do you do if this happens? What are the options if this happens?
What are the options?
You could still survive,
Under
depending on the where you are, and so
underground,
the one explosion doesn't necessarily have to be the lethal one. That was my first fear. Like the first bomb is going to end everything. No, it's not. But if that first explosion leads to retaliation, then we're Facebooked. Or let's just say, then we're fucked.
Yes, because no, not all the people understand the Facebook
Yes.
term. It doesn't. I mean, the fear of having a huge mushroom, but not in a good way, uh, doesn't actually mean the fear of death.
Of course, but we all fear death.
We all fear death, right?
Yes.
How do you manage to how do you look to death?
I try to, and I'm not sure if I'm always succeeding, but by this basic ancient way of memento mori. Know that you will die. So make every day
We
that
all know. It's not about knowing.
I was about to say.
Please.
This would be the timing.
Thank you.
How do you actually make each day like if it were the first and the last day that you're on the planet. I'm not saying I'm doing that, because most days you just go with the flow. But some days I even think, like, if this would have been my last day, it would have been a very beautiful day. This is how I look at it. Because any day can be your last day. And the moment you come to an age where you start losing, first it's your grandparents in a like the regular way, then your parents, then your friends. I've lost some friends already. So you start to value the deeper essence of memento mori much more. And then the question is, do you actually sometimes contemplate on that? Because a lot of people say they do, but when you ask them, so how do you do that? And for me, contemplating on that would actually be like, some of those beautiful days. 2 weeks ago, I had one of those days with a friend. He lives in Australia. He was in Romania. We took one of these bus tours. We had an amazing day together. I went to bed. I was like, wow, if I won't wake up tomorrow, I had this very beautiful day. So it's about valuing what happens. And it wasn't fancy. We ate Mitch at this stand with fries that were not well cooked. And we enjoyed. It was an amazing day. Just two guys, one from Australia and New Zealand, one from the Netherlands, at Brandkastle, where they think Dracula lived, whilst Dracula himself never really existed. But we enjoyed it.
Eating small ones.
Eating Mitch. Don't say small ones. I'm trying to do my best to take the littles. Eating the littles, not the small ones. And we're looking at each other and we're like, man, this is the life. For us at that moment.
So if you were to be told in that moment that it is your last day, could you tell me in your own full honesty that you would be fine with that?
The moment you started asking the question, I was like, sure. Another thing I learned in Romania, sure.
But if I were to ask you in Netherlands, what would be the answer?
Still sure, but then the Dutch version.
Okay.
We don't have the at least that's what I think, because I'm not Romanian, but sigur has so many meanings in the Romanian language. We don't have a similar word. We have other words that would it could mean the same, but it's not about the word, it's about your mindset. Would I think it's tough? Of course I don't want some angel to appear to me telling me like, I'm sorry, but I'm going to pull the plug today. No, I don't want that. But if it happens, I've had a very nice life.
On one hand, you tell me that not all days are the same, of course, and some days you just go with the flow, and or maybe you cannot reach that level of satisfaction of living like it was the last day of your life. I'm living fully. On the other hand, you tell me that discipline is more important. As far as I know you, discipline is very important, and to have a schedule and to have repeated small tasks who builds up and builds up and builds up, and right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to have discipline.
Yes.
I think it's important to have structure, but it should serve you and not lead you.
And not lead you.
Yes. For me, it's become a way of the adversity of the past made structure a way of survival. My challenge is to sometimes let go of structure in order to stay out of the ongoing flow of things.
In order to give yourself a space where you can meet with a friend, so like this. Okay.
Yes, because one part of my structure is I'm still trying to lose weight. So
okay.
Mitch is, and fries and pickles.
Against the policy of
they're
losing
against
weight.
Yes. So what do I do when I have this amazing time and I like Mitch, and I like fries, and I like being with my friend? So do I blow that up by ordering a salad, which could have been an option as well? No, we took they didn't have cola zero. They only had cola normal. We even took a bag of sugar. And he's even more into sports than I am. But you know, the good thing, if you live through discipline and structure, it's very easy to sometimes let go of it. That's my view.
Yes,
If you
from
don't,
that point, it's
if you
easy.
don't live through discipline and structure, it's really hard to get back to it. So for
Yes,
me, in all these things, it's easier to let go of these,
I feel the
the
same.
rules and the strictness. That's why I value rules. That's why I value structure. That's why I value discipline as a guide, not as a leading aspect. And it's easier to let go and get back to it than having to implement it in your life when you're in my age zone. Because then you've done over 50 years without it. And, this is what I think I see, but it's easy to say because I haven't been there. But people who get heart problems or problems with, cholesterol or diabetes, it's very, very hard for them to get into this disciplined, structured lifestyle that can help you to have less problems. And I've been there. I think I showed you a picture of how I was 7 years ago. I was almost 130 kilos. But luckily, I was trained at an early age, so it was still there, how to deal with discipline and structure. So I could get back. That's why I honestly believe that it is extremely helpful for young people between the age of
18 and
much sooner.
okay.
The moment they go to school is also offer them some discipline and structure. Not rigid, playfully, but offer it to them. This is, for example, why I really still believe, like in Israel, it is not a bad thing that we still have, that in Israel there's still the military service for men and women, for all.
That's a good thing
I think it's a good thing
in terms of discipline.
if it builds discipline and structure. So I'm not saying it should, like you all should, but in order to have people with some discipline and structure, yeah, I honestly think that the Israelis are pretty successful because of this, because they still do this, they still value this. And everyone that I've seen who is either effective or successful, or whatever words we choose for that, for me it's effective, but for others it's successful. Those are people who live by a certain degree of structure and discipline, who don't just go through life, you know, just taking it day by day. Because I think I also take life day by day, but there's this base in the back that is serving me.
Okay. So actually, the sorry, the discipline and structure doesn't fight your courageous.
Not at all. The opposite.
It helps. They help a lot.
Yes,
Okay.
they serve me, but it's a thin line. There are also people, and I do think sometimes I cross that line. When you come into my home, it's extremely structured. I don't even leave the coffee cup in the morning. I clean it before I
Is
leave.
that bad? It's
that good.
that the coffee or the habit?
The habit.
Oh,
No, I clean the cup before I leave. Or I put some water in it so I can clean it easier when I get home.
very efficient.
I'm very efficient, yes.
So why don't you like it? Why do you want to be out of these habits? Because you tell me that you need to move
No.
away from a part of this
No.
discipline.
Sorry, then I didn't explain it clearly. The danger for me is that I get stuck in the discipline and structure. Whenever I feel I'm doing less well, this is my survival mode. So contrary to people that I've seen in the past, or that even to some of my friends, some people become very chaotic when they are stressed. I become even more structured. And not just the stress of a workday, because that's, we can deal with that, but the stress of adversity. For example, I divorced 6 years ago, and the first 6 months, my house was extremely, extremely clean, extremely, extremely structured.
This was a coping mechanism.
Yes.
A
For
good,
me it is.
a good, yeah.
That depends.
It,
That
it
depends
was
because
beneficial to you at that time.
yes,
In those terms, I mean,
yes.
good. Okay.
But I needed a friend to tell me that I shouldn't get stuck in there. And that took another 2 years.
Okay. And to get out from the house, it was also
No,
a
not necessarily
courageous
getting out from
moment,
the
an
house.
attitude,
No,
mindset.
It's like, just maybe leave the coffee cup on the table in the morning,
Okay.
things like this. What's the need if you live alone that you clean up everything after yourself? I had two cats in those days, and before I left the house, I cleaned the couch. I took the cat hairs off with one of those sticky
Which
rollers.
is useless.
It is.
But it wasn't actually, because it did you good. Do you have another courageous moment in your recent life you want to share? Not something like what you did in the army, which was
Yeah,
extraordinary,
it's
let's say.
courageous as in something that I told myself I needed to do. Um, for the past 6 years, I took breaks in summer. I didn't go on summer holiday. And I usually, even my friends ask me, like, are you going to Barcelona again? Because I know in Barcelona, I'm single and I'm pretty okay being single. I think I'm actually one of those happy singles. Apparently, we have those in the world. But I also know that means that 90% of the time I'm also good being alone.
Okay.
The interesting aspect is I live alone and I still build in me time when I don't want to see other people. Strange. So when I go on holidays, I know 90% of the times I'm good. But this 10%, I need something around me happening. So a city like Bucharest, that's why I live in Bucharest, or a city like Barcelona, they offer me the same. If I need to see other people, I just go outside. I don't need to talk with them. I need to see the life in a city. So this year, for the first time, I decided to take a month of holidays, and I also went to Creta, Crete,
Yes.
for 10 days alone to a place that is like a family place. And I was a bit anxious, like, okay, what's going to happen? Because I go to Barcelona, I have friends there. So if I feel alone in Barcelona, I know that my friends will be there. I can visit them, or I go into the city. But this place where I was in Crete, I've been there before with my ex-husband. A really nice small villa with some apartments, but it's a family place. So I was pretty anxious. Like, you're going to Crete alone. You're going to spend time on the pool alone, as where there are couples or people and they don't allow kids under the age of 12. So people with young children, like over 12, families, like, how would you feel? What's going to happen? So I, booked a ticket and I went.
Because of the challenge, or because you just wanted to go
I
to?
wanted to go on a
Okay.
holiday, and I
Okay.
wanted to go to a place that wasn't completely
It's
unfamiliar to me.
familiar, yeah.
But the thing was, what's going to happen if you're in a place like this alone? I had the time of my life, and I was afraid that I was going to be one of those single travelers that needs other people to talk to. But the opposite happened. People came to me asking me, like, are you up for a talk? And sometimes I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm reading. And sometimes I actually had a talk. And
Nice.
a couple invited me to go out for dinner, and I said, I'm sorry, not today. Because I didn't want to take that next step. So small, courageous, not small, but other courageous acts like the obvious ones, these are.
Mundane, let's call them. Doing something which makes you uncomfortable, and being scared of what can it actually turn out, but still do it because you want to, and these are your values, and or your intuition calls it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
But I wasn't scared.
Anxious, not okay. Anxious, not scared.
Yes,
Okay,
anxious.
but anxiety Do you know it has something in common with fear?
Of course, but it's not
Okay.
the same.
We agree to disagree, but we agree, but it sounded nicer.
No, but that's the thing, you know. Also, I don't. I also believe the only thing you can do is face your fears, not get rid of them.
Yes, face them.
Yes,
How how can you get rid of the fears
a lot of
like
people.
this? You know?
Yeah, no, you
No.
should face them, and they
Yes.
should be there because then they become. You know, I think it's too popular to say that fears can become your friend, but they can become friendly.
And they can even support you sometimes. They
Yes,
can even protect you in some
yes,
cases.
yes. That's why I think that's why we have them.
Okay, Pierre, at 85 years old, yes, not now, 30
Okay.
years,
Yes.
coming back to this moment, what do you think would be your advice from that position at 85 to this moment?
To me,
Yes,
something that I've done always. Keep calm and carry on.
in 30 years,
Yes.
shouldn't you change something about your
Why should I?
good question? I don't know.
Honestly, if you ask me now, I think it would still be keep calm and carry
Nice,
on. Or steady as she goes. It's like either one of the two, or maybe the two. I really,
nice,
you know, and there's a history behind this. You know,
nice.
there was a
What?
in World War I or World War II. I don't know. I think World War II in London. They put these posters on the wall to help people go through the adversity of war. Keep calm and carry on.
No, I didn't know about
And
this.
you don't? I'm
No.
going to show you later.
Yes, nice.
This is what I tend to do. Keep calm and carry on.
Okay.
And if things get bad, there's this beautiful, funny, well, maybe now it's funny, but when you're in that position, it's not that funny, by Winston Churchill. If you go through hell, keep going.
Keep going.
Keep
The
calm
obstacle is the
and
way,
carry on.
in a way.
Yes.
Actually, there is a lot of courage in confronting a difficult situation and in facing your emotions, your negative emotions, in not running from them. And this is something all of you courageous people share, and something that I learned from Buddhist meditation teachings and so on. It's the courage to feel, to face it, and to do something about according to your intuition and your values, even if the consequences, immediate consequences, will not be beneficial to you.
Mhm.
But still carry on, still do it, because you cannot go by this. You must face it. Okay, from a scale to one, from 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself as on a scale of courage? 10 being the most courageous, of course, and one being afraid to get out of from the house, get out of the house. Sorry.
I think I would level to 8, but that's exactly where I would want to be.
Why not 9?
Because between 8 and 10, there's so much more to learn.
There's much more to learn.
Yes. And the
Okay.
more you learn, the more you live.
What would you want to learn to be at 10?
I don't want to be a 10 now.
Ah, okay.
I would like to be at a steady 8. That is challenging enough. And there's always start with the end in mind. And the end should be there, not here. It should be there. So maybe at one, some of the days, like the day I had 2 weeks ago with my friend, that was a day of a 10. But what's the fun in having only days like that? There's no fun in it. I honestly think, and I've experienced, nothing gets comfortable so quickly and so easy as living a luxurious life without any challenges. But there's also nothing that becomes so boring. So that's why, I think I came back to Bucharest because Bucharest offers me the chaos that I need, being so very structured. If I don't counterbalance that with something nice and chaotic, and not, paved and not like actually paved. Some of the roads in Bucharest are still not properly paved. And I've become to enjoy that, which is a bit arrogant even, but this is what I need in life. I don't want a 10. I'm very happy with the steady 8. As I always tell with my friend and colleague in Amsterdam, he came up with the concept of let's go for the steady 8, because then we keep improving. If you say we've reached the 10, you stop improving. And that's no life. Again, then you're in your in your shell. You're the turtle in the shell because there's no need to improve anymore. And then things become boring.
I love
this is my view, my limited view, because the moment it's my view, it becomes limited.
Yeah, of course.
But I think this is how people grow old. Because they stopped developing themselves. They stopped improving what you can still improve. And improving doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to have something that is better.
But
No, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily always have to be better. It can be so many other things.
It can be different. It can be other experience.
That.
Okay. Last but not least, do you have an advice for the people who are not so courageous, who are, let's say, like a 5 or a 4, but they want to be higher on this scale of courage?
First and foremost, find your own way. Don't let anyone else tell you what to do.
How can you find your own way?
Suspend, remember. Find your own way is don't let others tell you what to do, but do ask their advice. So, podcasts like this, maybe, in all my humbleness, because this is already getting a bit arrogant there. Get your inspiration from others. There are so many things that you can read. There are so many movies that you can watch. There's so much music that you can listen to that can challenge you to take a next step in becoming more courageous. There are so many things you can do, and find your own way. Because for me, one of the moments to learn more about my own courage is that holiday to Crete. That to me is, again, like, okay, I need to take this next step. I need to expand my comfort zone. But everybody needs to find his or her or their own ways in this. I cannot tell people you should do this.
Yeah.
No, you should be willing to start the journey on courage, because that's a journey. And you should face your fears and see if you can find a way to make your fears more friendly.
Okay.
And if people tell you, sometimes if people tell you, no, you shouldn't do that, think twice. Think really well if they are telling you this because they are confronting you with their limitations, or they are warning you for your limitations. And that's a tricky thing.
Or they just care about you a lot.
Yes,
which is a good intention, but still need to be
from their limitations.
From their limitation.
That would be my advice.
I heard recently that an advice that you shouldn't take upon any advice from people who don't care about you. I mean, feedback, in terms of feedback. If they care about you and you are sure, you must listen at least to understand if it's fruitful to you or not. But if not, you shouldn't be very open to advices.
I'm not sure if I would agree. Because sometimes it's not people giving you feedback. It can also be situations that give you feedback.
Yes.
So if you relate feedback just to people and care, sometimes it can be a situation that gives you feedback.
But you must separate them.
No, I think you should be open for any kind of feedback, but you should learn to value. So what value does this feedback have? Yes, because the more I think about it, the more I'm like, no, maybe it's even a good thing that you listen to feedback to people who don't care about you because they don't have the filter.
And they are brutally honest, let's say, and maybe more fruitful.
Yes.
Maybe.
So be your own compass, be your own guide.
Nice. Okay. Any other thing you missed? I wanted to ask you. I never asked you. You wanted to be asked from me. Any other thing you need to add regarding the courage theme?
No, I think what we just concluded is a very nice conclusion. So thank you very much for inviting me for this talk.
Thank you for coming to the podcast, and I'm pretty sure that this will be very helpful. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you so much. Foarte drăguț!